sit down.
Welcome to Stew in the Nut, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on the show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. We would like to thank those who make this show possible and allow us to bring it to you. Our show sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, BlueHammer.com, Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation, Graybeard Publishing, and of course, Sheep Fight Company. Enlisted Night Fight Company, yeah, that's who's the main sponsor. One of these days when we get around to updating our intro. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Stew in the Nun, episode 134. Stu here on this July 31st. And with my brother from another mother, the Nun, right next to me. I've got to fix his video, or he's got to move a little bit to his left of my right. There we go. Yeah. Or I can fix it either way. I got you nothing but full screen. Nothing but... Oh, you know why? Because... Oh, no, not the right one. Oh, there we go. Oh, what's this one? Oh, not that one. Here we go. All right. I had you set up for the guest one, and we don't have a guest. So you can move back to your left. And I will fix you up there. My bad. I got you going from the left to the right. All right. Anyways, hey, Toby, how you doing?
Good, my brother. I'm just doing a little social media action right now, but excited to be back. I missed you last week. You know, although we did have Mike Simpson, you know, Dr. Mike Simpson. So it was, you know, filled your shoes fairly well.
But he's a much better looking guy than me. So, you know, that's...
I mean, there's that.
Yeah. I'm just adjusting the video so we can get that awesome looking Enlisted 9 shirt in the video here as I make some adjustments. But yeah, and but he is a ginger, right? So I mean, he's got that going against him. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, well, you know, I might have a little ginger in me too, or a little light. Yeah,
I've heard you had a ginger in you a time or two. But that's
ginger ale. That's
okay.
Ginger ale.
We'll keep it. We'll keep it that. I thought JP told me about this one time in Iraq, but anyways. I reached back there. You like how I did what I did there? But yeah, so yeah, I did miss you guys. I piped in for a little bit. I was able to connect for a little bit as I was deep into the backwoods of Ohio last week, working with some young men, training up and working with some Boy Scouts. So I couldn't be here. But yeah, I tuned in for a little bit. It looks like you guys had a great time and had a great show.
We did. We have a little audio issue that we have yet to figure out. You know, there's a ghost in the machine, but
I hear Facebook's doing some stuff to, you know, maybe they were messing with things. I don't know, right? And
yeah, maybe.
Now there's some talks of new Russian hacking and stuff on Facebook already. Maybe they were trying to tap in the show to get some intel. Who knows? But
I mean, yeah. I mean, I actually I might have something that they could use.
Yeah. You may just have that, but yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So it's good to be back, and thank you for everyone tuning in here. I'm just getting things set up on make sure I keep an eye on the chats and all that good stuff. But anyways, hey Toby. So lots been going on as we always say in the last week. In fact, I'm watching our president right now in Tampa, holding quite a spirited rally down there. Lots of red hats in Tampa.
Really?
Yes. He has got the place packed, and he's on fire. I was listening to him a little bit, and he was kicking it. So, anyways, so we got some comments in the chat. I'm gonna have to go back up and check into those. But yeah, so a lot of things going on. I think we got a few topics we want to hit on tonight, and there's no shortage of things to go on. First, I want to again thank our sponsor, Enlisted Night Fight Company. Just in case you didn't see that logo right there. And you can see Toby and I both wearing some awesome design shirts. I got the Guardians of the Constitution 2A.
Yeah.
There we go. And
I got a little join or die.
Join or die, yeah. And I didn't bring my No Step on Snake hat, but I got a No Step on Snake patch on a nice 511 hat. So I wore it all last week. My Boy Scouts loved it. In fact, that became the saying all through the week was "No step on snick." So I'm building some good little Second Amendment guys there. But yeah, and got our sharp looking VO hats on, I must say.
That's right. That's right. Veteran Outdoors always doing good things, so we always support and represent. But yeah, no, lots going on. I didn't realize he had a rally going on right now. I've been too focused on Tim Kennedy's new show coming out, Hard to Kill. The fresh new take on dirty jobs, if you will, the next evolution of like taking it to a new level where Tim gets to kind of spotlight and showcase some of the unsung heroes in America. And I think it's wonderful. You know, a lot of times people like to think that, you know, they have an exciting or dangerous job, and they just don't realize like some of what actually goes on out there just in day-to-day America, and what it actually is and how exceptional some of these people are. So really excited for that. That'll be tonight, 10 p.m. on Discovery Channel. Make sure you tune in. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the show. But
my DVR is set. I am ready. The family's been notified. We are ready to see it. We've been missing Tim on the big screen there, on the little screen or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's you know, having Mike on the show, Dr. Mike Simpson on the show last week. You know, we got to talk a lot about, you know, hunting Hitler, and you know, like what the end of hunting Hitler is, you know, what came to be. And you know, unfortunately, you know, I wish I could say that they found more stuff that, you know, I know the public would just blow their minds if they knew what all was included there. But it's
that's what's great having Mike on, or we have Tim on and talking to him. We get all the good behind the scenes stuff. We just can't share it. We can't share it.
God, I wish I could say it.
I know.
You know, that's one of the things he was saying. He's like, I could probably tell you some stuff, but that'd be a different show. And it's like, oh man, come on, bro.
Yeah.
Don't leave us hanging.
Well, but in honor of Tim tonight, being from Texas like yourself, I am sipping on Garrison Brothers. Fine.
What?
Texas. Yes.
Where did you get the Garrison Brothers?
I am sipping on some Garrison Brothers in a fine Yeti tumbler here. So, in case there we go.
Well, I'm having some Troy and Sons, also in a fine Yeti tumbler, while I represent Smith, Gerber, and I rep my water as myself too.
Be nice to have Yeti as a sponsor. They're not yet, but in case they want to be, we do enjoy our Yeti tumblers. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well,
which are also, I found a nice life hack for my wife this week. They are great for eating ice cream. Put ice cream in the Yeti.
Yes, they are.
It doesn't melt. It doesn't get soupy. It stays frozen. You can take
it sure does.
So there you go, life hack. Hashtag that. Buy a Yeti tumbler for your ice cream. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, excited to get to see Tim tonight. And I didn't think about it, but it is kind of like a newer rendition of Dirty Jobs. Probably dangerous jobs would probably be the way to put it, more than dirty.
Yeah, well, I think Mike, you know, Rowe definitely tried diving into that stuff.
But he ain't no Tim Kennedy. You're saying.
But he ain't no Tim Kennedy. They were probably like, hey, so would you like to crawl down this tube, or would you like to fall out of an airplane and crash into a barn?
Yeah.
I'll shovel this manure.
Yeah, exactly.
But I really like him. I think he's a super intelligent dude. I really think that he speaks accurately about the current status of the workforce in America. And I really enjoyed listening to some of the things he said.
And he doesn't mind sharing his opinion, and does not care who he says it like it is. He doesn't worry about hurting feelings or being politically correct. He says what his opinion is. Right, not what his genre of industry tells him to say.
Yeah, no, and the neat thing about it is, you know, he's apolitical in most things that he talks about. He's just very factual.
Right.
And so a lot of people think that, he's like this political juggernaut that is out there spewing and talking about different things. And he actually just speaks factually. And a lot of times, like, you will understand his position, but you might not understand his opinion, because he doesn't give you his opinion. He gives you his position based on fact. And that's usually an understanding, not like, wouldn't it be cool if? And I think as a result of that, he's one of the anomalies in any kind of public forum, because most people can't do that. Most people know what my opinion is, because I'm not afraid to share it. That's why I think you and I have a podcast / radio / Facebook Live thing going.
Online video. We're just an online TV show, self-funded, independent, always looking for sponsors.
Yeah, always looking. Might have something.
Might have something.
Who knows?
But yeah. No, we got some good questions coming up in the chat room tonight, which may give us something to talk about, some new angles here. I don't know if you've had a chance to look, but from an old friend of mine, actually the spouse of one of my old soldiers back in the day, which doesn't seem like I should be back in the day, but I guess it was well over 10 years ago. So we got some good topics to maybe to
yeah. So, but before we dive into Tracy's statement, I want to. That's, I think, what you're referring to in the Facebook chat room. Yep. Is Tracy Wickman statement.
Yep.
I definitely want to answer that. So Tracy, bear with us one second. But one of the things I've been waiting to talk to you about, because like, I find myself sometimes in the most entertaining of positions. Over the weekend, I was taking a few moments of respite and hanging out with my wife and my daughter, and we were at the pool. And we were swimming, and, I had to get out of the pool because I was cooking, because I might have a little ginger in me, a definite level of fairness within this body, and my pigmentation. And, so I went and sat under this little Boy Scout gazebo that was made for someone's Eagle project. And so I could just observe them in the pool, and I could get some shade. And the conversation at the picnic table next to me took a really strange turn. They were talking about opioids, and they were talking about how, like, the majority of military members are and veterans are addicted to opioids, and I didn't say anything because I was like, I wanted to hear where the conversation was gonna go, because people that have no connection, have no understanding, are. They say what they think sometimes, and it's based on perceptions. It's based on what we present as a veteran community. It's based on what the government presents as our needs. So I really just wanted to be a fly on the wall and listen. And then it got to the point where they were talking about why is it, and they were all in unison, a bit of an echo chamber, if you will, talking about how they felt it was unfair and wrong that veterans got treatment and assistance with post-traumatic stress, but convicts and people coming out of prison did not. And they didn't understand, if there was government funding for veterans to have it for post-traumatic stress, people coming out of prison should have it provided to them, because, like, what they went through was far more horrific than what people going through combat is. Now, so couple of things. There's no doubt in my mind that going to prison is probably horrifically traumatic. Different level of prisons. I haven't watched a prison movie or a Locked Up Abroad that I didn't go like, ooh, that just doesn't sound like I want to go do that. We're talking about trauma to the human psyche that's unparalleled. And so I agree that it would be nice if we had the ability to make sure that, there was something there, but when I say a resource, I mean, that's what ministries are for. That's what nonprofits are for. They're there to help bridge that gap. Right. I don't think it's the responsibility of the public, and I don't believe it's the responsibility of tax dollars to do. And I let it go on for a few minutes, and I was like, I got to disagree. And like, I found myself in a really precarious position because, one, I was outnumbered. And my whole argument was, well, the reason that veterans get it is because, you know, that's part of their agreed upon compensation package when they sign a contract. And, and I mean, that's really what it boils down to in essence is that, there's an obligation, of the government funded by the taxpayer to pay for anything that's damaged during the course of the service to the nation. One of the reasons why military members aren't paid as much is because there's a scale of compensation based on, that. And I tried explaining it, and man, like you would have thought that I had just called their baby like ugly because it was about to go down. But I found it really interesting how people. There seems to be this trend now where people, one, feel the government's responsible for everything, and no matter what you did or what circumstance you find yourself in, and that was like their big thing. It's like, well, it's not their fault. It's like, yeah, it's 100% their fault. They went to prison.
Yeah.
Like, if I go to prison tonight, I got to deal with that. That is, I earned that. Just like I earned my right to go to the VA if they would accept me. Just saying.
Yeah, just saying. No, it's an interesting. I've been involved or around a lot of those conversations too, but I've never heard one put in paralleling or comparing military to prison, and what one should be allowed to versus another. Some may argue, well, people sign up, join the military. They knew they were going and getting into. True. But they're doing something positive for society versus someone that commits a crime, knows what they're getting into, or knows what is possible. There's no guarantee of what will happen. Just like in military, you may go to combat, you may not go to combat. You may go to combat and sit in the fob and drink green beans coffee. You may be downrange living in the suck. But again, one is doing something positive, contributing back to society or your country, and the other one is you're a vagrant and you're breaking our nation's laws or local laws or whatever it may be. So
to caveat that, I'd like to address Tracy's comment from the Facebook chat room, Tracy Wickman.
Yep.
So I again feel like there's only a few circumstances, and I want to say it's a very few circumstances where a family member should be afforded the services provided by the VA intended for the veteran. And the very few circumstances I feel that should fall under is if a service member's spouse is completely financially dependent on the service member's VA benefit and retirement. And I know this is a slippery slope because you're like, well, but there's a generation, it's not as common now, but there's a generation that is passing away where the wives primarily stayed at home to take care of the family, rear the children, as was our social custom, predominantly at least the past many generations, but that's been changing the past 2 generations, where she was not afforded the opportunity to raise money for herself. Now, like her funding throughout life came from, the DOD and then the retirement. And now, that service member's passed away and she is left without care. That's the exception. I think, if it's something educational, you need to serve in a certain capacity, and you should elect, if you're not going to use that education benefit yourself, in limited ability, you should be able to pass it on to your children, because you paid for it. And outside of that, I don't think any.
Mhm.
No,
Well,
outside of that, I'm like,
so
no,
let me get mine on it. I'm going to kind of disagree with you a little bit. I think there is a case for family members to possibly use services in the VA. I don't think it's the one you mentioned, and the reason why is because I think we're well past the time when if a spouse, male or female, decides not to work, not to learn skills, not to go to school, or and be independent, then that's kind of on them. I wouldn't say that would warrant them to care by the VA or anything. But if a spouse is a primary caregiver to a wounded veteran, so if you have I would say if a veteran comes back and he is severely wounded, and you know, like we've seen many pictures and videos of, in a wheelchair, mentally incapacitated, whatever, from wounds as virtue of their service, not even necessarily combat, but their service, which is be why they would have a service connected disability, and the spouse or family or some family member, maybe it's not the spouse, maybe it's a brother or sister or whatever, is their whole life is consumed with caring for this person, then and they can't do anything else, they can't do work or anything like that, or you know, their psyche is being impacted by this, and watching their loved one in pain, and everything goes through, then I would think that would be a case. Is kind of my opinion. I didn't ever really thought about this until I saw Tracy's question. I would say that would be a case for them to possibly, because they've just devoted their entire life for taking care of a family member, rather
yeah.
than that person sitting in a VA, a soldier's home, or something like that. I would say that would be more of a case for one than
But
yes.
that's really the same case, right?
Well, it's different than a family member just not having a job and rearing the children
But
and that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm referring to like a passing generation.
Mm-hmm.
But now, yeah, the indigency would be created by someone having to be a full time care provider,
Right.
to which they're already receiving VA benefit because they're most
Right.
likely being partially compensated for that. And I think that should continue. And upon the passing, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
that some of that should continue. But I see that Tracy's also added, I'm speaking only about counseling. So here would be a caveat to that. And for me, I think that being able to get access to VA counseling should be limited, and I think it should be as applicable to the situation with the veteran. I think one of the issues that we have with so many family members dealing with, especially mental health issues within their veteran family, they have a lack of knowledge about what it is. They have a lack of knowledge about what caused it, and they, you know, could benefit from having a crash course, if you will, on what it actually is, what actually causes it, and what the realities of it are. And, you know, as a part of that, have access to a very limited amount of additional counseling. But, you know, the VA's job is not to help fix the family member. It's to help fix the veteran.
And it barely does that with any decent amount of quality.
Well, it doesn't, in fact, dude. I
I mean,
mean,
the counseling from the VA I would not even want it. Some of that I would not wish on even a family member. But I get it. Some people, that's all you got, and you know,
yeah,
anything is better than nothing. But I mean, it would not necessarily. I mean, look, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. I can easily go to the VA and get my medical completely covered. I choose to pay my copays and pay my insurance and use my civilian doctor all day before I go to the VA. I was talking to someone recently about that. I thought it might have been on the show, but yeah, it's but even in counseling, and it probably would mostly be counseling, Tracy. It probably would be, again, if they were a primary caregiver, and even someone doing that. I mean, that's what I kind of mentioned, where they're watching their loved one, you know, impacted, and their life being taken from them, and everything else, and not being able to live a fulfilled life. They probably would need some counseling. They probably need someone to talk to. I mean, I can't even imagine the horror of your loved one that you've been with, and the one you want to spend your life with, and you're having to almost care for them like a baby, and do everything for them, and they're completely 100% dependent on you. I would imagine, you know, that would try the patience and so of a lot of people, and then sometimes they would need someone to go for you know, especially if they don't have faith to fall back onto or anything like that. And even if they do have faith to fall onto, they probably just we're human, and they probably would need some reassurance. They would need some guidance on how to deal with situations, whatever it may be. But yeah, that's good questions, Tracy, for sure. Those are
Well, yeah, yeah. No, that was a great. That was actually a really good question, and I think everyone's getting curious about the stuff again because just like that conversation I had at the pool, there's this misunderstanding or this misconception of who and who's responsible for what and why, and I think that's good. But I do want to talk quickly to the shard. I want to so you probably don't know this, Troy, but recently in the last year, a survey / study was done in two parts in the greater Austin area.
Oh, I'm up on ATX issues and things. Trust me.
All right,
I'm
so
trying.
like in the ATX, specifically the ATX, there was a study done to see the effects and harm created by Confederate monuments, names, etc. And several items, were talked about. Several items were addressed. Some things have been removed, and some things have been changed. That was part one. Part two, they went to extend it further, and they said that it was not just anything from the Confederacy, but anyone from an era of slave ownership that could be considered, harmful to, or causing cultural damage.
From the era, regardless
from the era.
Yeah.
So the city Austin is named after a family. One of the more famous Austins is a gentleman by the name of Stephen F. Austin. He currently has a university named after him, Stephen F. Austin University in Huntsville, Texas. The name Austin is named the name of the capital of Texas. And there's many, many things named after him, to include high schools, middle schools, all over and throughout the state. Because he owned slaves during a time period, they're like presented the need to potentially rename the city. And so Doug wants to know, like, if we can change his mind. So this is my thing. Historically, the fact that this gentleman owned slaves, I find irrelevant. That was a common practice at the time. It's a practice that's been refuted. It is a practice that's been legally changed. It's been morally adjusted, and I find it irrelevant that during that time this guy did it. What he did do was provide and lead many men and women to fight against a current world power. When I say current, at that time, in Spain and in their support of Mexico, fight a war of independence successfully, and provide and make way for a country, a republic, to stand in the wake of tyranny. It was a successful republic. It was a successful country. And as a result, it was asked to join the Union, and it's the only state in the Union that has the right to leave the Union at any time and doesn't need to consult with the Union about it.
Isn't that why it's called the Republic of Texas? Isn't that what
that is why it's called the Republic. It is still considered a republic. That's the reason why its flag can be flown at the exact same height as Old Glory, unlike any other state in the Union where that state's flag or guidon, if you're the Ohio, can be flown to the right and lower.
I did not know. I did not know it could fly at the same height.
It not only can it does. And depending where you're at, it might appear to be taller. You never know. But this is not a Confederacy issue. This is a historical value.
Right.
And the historical value isn't based in the fact that he owned slaves. The historical value in the name Austin is that He was one of the founding fathers of one of the most impressive republics the Union has ever seen.
So let me ask
just
you.
like the name Harris,
Let me ask
just
you.
like the name Travis,
Right.
just like I mean, you might as well tell
Houston.
Disney that they need to tell John Wayne he can't be Davy Crockett anymore.
Right. So let me ask you, what are they thinking about? Is there any recommendation, or is this just in the Army, I used to say, when my soldiers come to me with a complaint, I'd say, look, unless you're coming with a recommended solution, you're just bitching. I ain't got time for that. So if you got something you have a concern with, bring me one or two possible solutions, and then we can talk about it.
So they brought the study, and it was like an intense, funded study.
Taxpayer funded, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It was a funded study. But so far, the response has been laughter and ridicule. In fact, the person receiving the report, the person responsible for the adjudication or the presentation or the furthering of the report, laughed at it and mocked the position that it came from, politely mocked.
I was just wondering if they want to name it to someone later, because if they're damning everyone that happened to be alive during that time, that pretty much
the caveat is he did own slaves.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
for a period of time, yes.
Yeah. So did everyone back then, for the most part, if they could afford one and they had a business where they needed one.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
I tell a lot of people? I tell a lot of people when they want to, play that whole race card and you owe us and all that kind of stuff. I go, who do you think sold the slaves? Do you think it was a bunch of white dudes went to Africa and sold the slaves? No, that's not how it worked. White dudes from England didn't go sell the slaves. Fellow black Africans sold the slaves. That's how that worked. Right, but it's convenient to ignore certain parts of history and only remember the parts that
But I didn't see anywhere in that report that someone needed to tell Stone Cold Steve Austin that he also needed to change his name.
Yeah, good point. Yes.
It's like, hey, I'm sorry. Your parents are going to need to rename you. You need to file
right.
Because your name's like representative of like, nah.
Right.
It's like, why don't you go on the phone book, call all the Lees and tell them like they need to change their name too.
Yeah, I'd be interested to, see
just saying. Since I'm pretty confident that the majority of Lees registered in the American phone system or the phone books or census are not of Caucasian descent.
Yes, that is possible.
I'm
sure. You're going on a whim there, but you're pretty factually close.
Yeah.
Speaking of history, real quick, I want to say I'm reading. I've got a ton of the killing books from Bill O'Reilly that I've received as gifts, and I haven't had a chance to read them. Well, last week when I was down at Boy Scout camp, I took my Killing Lincoln book and read it, and I'm almost done with it. I'm in the very last one or two chapters. Let me tell you, very good read. I've heard a lot about those. I'm looking at a list of the other ones in front of me that I need to read. But he does a phenomenal job in digging and exposing parts of history we just normally haven't heard about. And I've been to Ford Theater. I've been to the house across the street where he died. I'm telling you, I'm on fire next time I get back to D.C. to go look at it again, learning what I've learned from that book. But if you get a chance to read some of those, Toby, I don't know if you had or any of our listeners, it is worth the read. Probably any of them. So far, I've just read that one. The details, the level of connections between John Wilkes Booth, the size of the conspiracy, so much more than you ever had a chance to learn in one period of American history in high school. Let me tell you, very, very good read if you get a chance in your history buff. Killing Kennedy is my next one, or Killing Jesus. Those are the two I'm looking at next. Those want to be my next ones. But anyways, I just want to give a quick plug for that. Good book.
So, just out of curiosity. So his killing, kind of thing, I've always kind of just looked at it as like that's his shock value title to kind of attract readership, right? Is there a reason why he's picked people that were actually killed? Because the last two names he gave, Kennedy and Jesus,
right? Well,
they actually did get killed,
right? And so and all of them did. I think he writes about those. Like there's one, there's the other one I got also. One of my sons got me is the one on World War II in Japan, and it's really on all the atrocities that were done by the Japanese army and everything that was done in the Pacific. So I think that was called Killing the Pacific, I think, or something. But it's supposed to be. It's what I've heard on that and reviews have been. It will just sicken you the amount of stuff that was really done by the Japanese military against our folks and our allies. But no, it's just he just takes these monumental events, which happen to be people being killed, at least in the ones I've read and I'm coming and I've heard about. He just takes them and really digs into them and just exposes everything about it, and just gives you a lot of the backstory. But the one on Japan is not really around one person. It's really about the whole battle in the Pacific, which is pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that they took wartime atrocities to different levels. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, some of the things that is near and dear to both of our hearts as infantrymen is probably the Bataan Death March.
Right.
Regardless of what unit you served in, and that's something that every infantryman is taught at probably early in their career, that men were marched to their deaths.
Yeah.
And like when you're on Sand Hill, or you were at what was it, Chapel Harmony Church. You're on Harmony. You're on Harmony Church or Sand Hill. Like you're getting marched around. And you start feeling sorry for yourself. Like someone's explaining to you that men walked over 100 miles without food and water, and if they fell behind, they were bayoneted because they weren't worth the bullet. When you look at Guam and you look at these countries, you look at these places. You don't even have to. You can read helmet for my pillow, a poncho for my bed, and like that lays out what they did to their own people that were serving, like the people fighting the war. Like the wartime atrocities of the Japanese are unparalleled in history.
I think they would
you can look at the atrocities.
They would make Al
Nazis.
Qaeda blush. I think they would make ISIS blush.
They would make ISIS blush for sure. I'm not trying to draw a comparison to what the genocide of the Holocaust was, and I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying when I say it's unparalleled. That was done to a specific demographic that they were not at war with. That was them, doing something to the earth that they felt they needed to do. And it was horrible, and it's one of the worst things that's ever happened on the planet. But in terms of warfare, actual combat, engaged man-to-man combat, the Japanese, they took it to a different level. And throughout history, you don't see that kind of level very often. You do. But what they were doing on the battlefield, in terms of mutilation, in terms of human sacrifice, in terms, it was.
Yeah,
it wasn't cool, and that wasn't that long ago.
What I've heard about
is that when you meet like a World War II veteran that fought in the Pacific, and he still calls them dirty Japs.
Right.
Like, I'm not offended by him saying that. If my kid said that, I'd slap the word right out their mouth.
Right.
Because that word's no longer applicable. That word was applicable in the Pacific.
Right. Yeah.
100%. And if you fought there, you've earned the right to use that word. Right. You've earned that right, because that enemy you faced was different. Just like you and I have earned the words, the terms of endearment that we choose, for the people that we fought against.
I like how you put that. I was wondering where you were going to go with that one. I was like, yeah, the terms of endearment.
But they are. They really are.
The normal civilian public would not understand and probably be mortally horrified. But yes, when you've faced some of those folks, you're right. Just like my dad is, what he's faced in multiple tours in Vietnam, he can call people of Vietnamese descent anything he wants. That's his choice, right? And but because the things he's seen are beyond what we can understand, or and beyond what we could even comprehend. But Doug just reminded me, there's also Killing Patton. That's another one of the books, is Killing Patton. So he's read that one, but. Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to get too much off on that. I want to get on a couple other things. A lot of stuff happening. One thing I want to hit on, I'm going to go a little bit political for just a few minutes if we could, Toby, is there seems to be the Democratic Party seems to be in complete disarray. The DNC is saying that it is broke and it doesn't have it can't rub two pennies together. The guy, I forget the guy that's in charge of them, is running around saying stuff, but they don't really have a clear leader. I don't know what Hillary is doing in her moo. She's doing some stuff, but there's not really a clear leader. President Obama's going to concerts. He's probably pulling some strings behind the scenes. None of the mainstream DNC is really looking at Bernie as anything as even a possibility. But they got this young lady out of New York, Cario, whatever her name is, who is a super progressive, is actually touring around with Bernie right now, and is trying to become the face of the Democratic Party, even though what I'm hearing is the majority of the Democratic Party is like, no, she doesn't represent us at all. She is a socialist, pretty much on the verge of being a communist. And I just find it interesting that a party that is so well respected in the media and by the famous, rich and famous, that has all this big money that possibly could be behind it, with so many in Hollywood and everything that and the social elites that support it and think their way, and the millions of people that that supposedly voted that way or whatever, that they can't find a true leader to step up because it's not Pelosi, it's not Hillary, it's not Maxine, it's not Schumer. But at the same time, it's not a 20-something-year-old out of Bronx who is not really out of the Bronx, who doesn't have an idea anything about world affairs or how to pay for anything, walking around trying to be a communist too. What's your thoughts on that? How they can be so bad off so fast?
So I have a couple of things here. One, I don't think they're as broke as they're claiming to be. I know here locally in the 21st Congressional District of Texas, this young woman, veteran by the name of MJ, is running against the incumbent John Carter, not the dude from the Disney movies. And she did that video with the doors, opening the doors. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a really impressive video. In fact, it's probably one of the best political ads
that
I've
awesome.
ever seen.
I watched it with you, and that went viral. That went national too.
Yeah, the fundraising as a result of that video is amazing. Like, she's got more money than she knows what to do with right now. So there's people, and this young lady in New York, she did fairly well on fundraising too. And she won there, right? So like she got the bid to go after the spot. But so I don't think they're as broke as they claim to be. I think they're selectively broke. As a whole, the big party probably doesn't have the deep pockets that it used to have. And I don't see guys like Barack Obama putting money back into that pot. I think like the big hitters that they have are trying to leverage their clout more than their cash. I think guys like George Clooney that are spending millions of dollars to put kids on buses to go fight different social causes, like that's taking away from money that would go. People like Rosie O'Donnell, like offering people money on Twitter, that's not helping either, because as a result, what's that doing? Like, that's drawing light to illegal practices. The lack of leadership, though, while there's some phenomenal candidates, out there. There's not a leader. There's someone that is a good fit for that location. I think in the case of New York, that person, got voted in or got the opportunity to run, and won the primary as a result of probably good ads and being a certain demographic, more than her understanding of the issues, because every interview that she's had has become satirical.
Yeah, yeah.
Like absolute satirical. And it's hard to take someone serious like that. Bernie Sanders is hard to take serious. When you have somebody, that it says the things that he says, but can't back them up and doesn't have the lifestyle to support it. And when I say lifestyle, like that dude has a lot of wealth that he didn't get on his own.
Right.
And like, he's not giving it away. He didn't use his money to run his campaign the way other people use their money. He's just not as invested in it as other people. I don't think they have that person that can challenge. Look at the Republican Party. The last election cycle, they started, I think, with 16 or 17 presidential candidates.
17, yeah.
And they got it down to 4 or 5 really good candidates. And in fact, there was some in that 17 that didn't make some of the earlier cuts that were phenomenal candidates. And there's guys like Mike Pence, that is the current vice president, that wasn't even part of that initial offering. So there's a plethora of leadership potential within the GOP. There doesn't seem to be that. The corruption that has followed, and the stigma that's following, I think is really damaging to them. Where you got their leadership was, Weiserman Schultz, who's like clearly like not in touch with anything close to a law book. You got Bernie Sanders that's not in touch with anything remotely connected to an economics book. You got, Hillary Clinton that's not connected to anything known as accurate. Like they don't have that person.
What do you think about Joe Biden? You think he's an option?
No. I think he's got a. I think Dan Quayle has a better chance of being a president.
What about Kamala Harris out of California? She's young, she's vibrant, she's, out there making a name for herself, trying to put herself in front of every camera at every committee meeting.
Yeah, no, like that's great, but that's not going to get you a presidency. Like that's going
to win you genres of people. That's going
to get you a demographic.
Right.
That's not going to get you a position. Because in the end, and what the media are not sharing very accurately or very well is that there is this group of people in America that disagree fundamentally with some of these progressive values. And as these people come in, that like this whole California, like we should let illegal aliens vote in local elections, like
as long as they don't use straws, if they use straws, they
right?
Yeah.
Like that's not even like that's not going to work anywhere other than that location. Like that's not going to pass the smell test in some of these larger centers. And and when you look at the map and you look at the Electoral College, people aren't gonna bite that bullet. While you might have won the election on popular vote by a very small margin, I think in the end the numbers weren't they weren't landslide numbers. It was a small margin. You're forgetting that the majority of people in the Electoral College didn't side with you. Like it wasn't close.
Right.
So like people are forgetting about that. And I think you're absolutely right. I think your assessment's accurate that they don't have somebody that can stand up there, because whoever that person is should be getting people's attention now and doing book tours and crying about why you didn't win. Like she's a 2-time loser. She didn't beat Barack and she didn't beat Trump. So she couldn't beat a politician and she couldn't beat someone that wasn't.
Right.
Like,
and she's got a ton of what was her base saying, get out of the line, get out from in front of the camera.
Yeah, like that ship for her sailed. Bernie Sanders, while he did have a good base, and they're like, oh, Bernie got robbed and all this stuff. I don't think he's. When you look at there's a being a socialist and being democratic, there's some gap there.
Well, I think part of why they're missing leadership is like they can spin it however they want. The media can say whatever they want, but there's no doubt the economy is going through the roof, and jobs are going through the roof, and as a country, financially, economically, which is what converts voters' minds, especially independents. It is soaring and doing great under this administration. It's how do you come up with a different platform to argue against success?
You don't, and that's what I'm saying. Like that gap, like the people within the DNC that, while they might disagree on some education items, they might disagree on some healthcare items, while they might disagree on some weapons items. One thing that they don't disagree on is they don't like people taking their money. Like the American population's not making a transition to socialism.
Right.
If that was true, the 17th of November, whatever that special day was supposed to happen with Antifa, actually would have made the news, outside of like a bunch of drunken jackasses high on whatever got arrested, or cried about being pepper sprayed. Like, how dare you? I'm out here protesting in your face and you use non-lethal on me. Like, I could sit and watch Antifa getting their ass kicked videos all day long. In fact, like, if that could be a hobby I could monetize, that would be a second job.
Like when you're depressed, and you're like,
yes,
I could look at kitten videos, or I could watch Antifa get their ass kicked and get pepper sprayed.
I don't know if you could draw up a metrics that would show which is more effective.
Yeah.
I like the kittens, but man, I sure do like watching someone that's crying about something that they know nothing about and have a total lack of social understanding getting punched in the face.
It's right one step below watching AC-130 gunship videos. I mean, that's right at the top.
That's private time. Like that's private time. Like that's not hot. Like that's private time videos. No, I like. I don't think that they have it, and I listen to a very broad spectrum of people. I pride myself in not trying to be in an echo chamber, and even my really staunchest Democratic and liberal friends, are living a life of misery because they know the chances of Trump being reelected are so high because they have nothing to offer.
I think that's why there's so much about conspiracy and criminal activity. That's the only way they can see to get rid of him. Because
like 100%. Yeah. That is 100%. Like they know that they can't beat him,
which is
in the ballot box. So they're trying to beat him in every possible way,
right.
Which is hilarious because like if we turn that tool on them.
Yeah, which kind of spins into this next topic, the Manafort trial, the Paul Manafort trial. They seated a jury today. They picked one, and that's going on. I was watching a little bit about it. Being out all last week, I missed a lot, and I was trying to catch up on stuff. And one thing I did not realize, I picked up today, there is nothing in this trial. There's nothing in the 18 charges or whatever it is they have against them that have anything to do with Russia, collusion, or the campaign or anything. In fact, the judge today has even instructed the jury that was sat and the attorneys, they cannot use the terms campaign, 2016, Russia, collusion, not to use that in any of their opening statements, closing statements, or anything in the trial. And he's warned them not to do it, or else he's going to, probably strike it from the record or whatever they do. Because there's nothing in this case. And this is the same judge, T.S. Eliot, that accused the attorneys for the government to say, are you really just doing all this just to get him to flip on the president? Because there's nothing in the case that has to do with the president. It's all, and he served 4 or 5 months on the campaign to get through a possible contested primary, and that's all he served on the campaign. And all this stuff is from years before that. potential $60 million he hid or whatever. But it's interesting that there's so much attention paid to this. Everyone on one side the anti-president side is hoping for some kind of silver bullet or some kind of, testimony or plea deal. That everyone's just waiting for that. There's nothing here. It's a guy who maybe made a bunch of money overseas and didn't report his on his taxes. That's what it has to do with.
Yeah. Again, this is people trying to sensationalize a situation, either one, to draw attention to it for commercial purpose, and two, this is all they got. Yeah. They're grasping at plastic straws.
Not paper ones.
Not paper. They're grasping at plastic ones. And like the harsh reality is no matter how long and how much they spend on this investigation, they're not going to find that smoking gun. They're not going to find that thing that they think they're going to find. And it's not because I know it doesn't exist. I just know that they'll never find it.
If they did, they would have found it. You and I both know
right.
Nobody in the government can keep a secret, especially when the government, and I can tell you this from working with them a lot in the last several years, there's a lot that do not support either side of the administration. There's many, especially the younger members working the government and Congress and places that are very anti the administration. And if any of them had any info or scoop and could, establish themselves as the source for some, New York Times or Washington Post reporter, they would do it. There's nothing there. I agree.
Yeah.
What did the president say the other day? Give it up already. You've been at this for so long. There's nothing there. I don't know of any one detective organization or law enforcement investigative division or district attorney or anything that would continue on an investigation so long with such a lack of evidence. They would just there's no case.
Right, but yet they're so quick to forget that there was a guy by the name of Ken Starr a little while ago, a couple years back, that did some investigating. Didn't take that long. And what he ended up finding was a plethora of infidelity.
A dress full of evidence.
A dress full of evidence.
I went there.
He found whitewater misappropriation. He found all kinds of stuff. Right? And what happened?
Right. Yeah. I hear you.
And that's why it's hey, if our guys are going to go after them and they're going to go after the other guys, and I don't mean to say our guys, I'm just saying if you're on one side or you're on the other side and you're going after each other, if there was something to have or be had, we would have it.
Yeah. But one thing it is causing, the one thing that is out there, and apparently this is a new thing, being diagnosed, is this TAD, Trump anxiety disorder. This apparently is a infliction. I'm assuming mostly on younger people, that they're having this disorder. They're seeing their psychiatrists and their psychologists, and they're being so spun up by, they're being so woke, to use the terms of today's youth, in the ways of the administration and how bad it is and so on and so forth, that they're establishing a disorder. Probably having to buy more prescription drugs, more Ritalin, more things like that, spend more on psychiatrists. But it is now a thing. Our president is now inflicting people physically with ailments because of the great things he's doing and what he's doing for this country, or how the media is representing them, which is probably really more it's at. But it's amazing that is now a disorder. I never heard that over President Bush or President Reagan or Clinton or Obama. Nobody had, people were like, hey, I don't agree with the guy. I don't like him, whatever. We kind of left it there. Nobody got a disorder over it, No one in a mentally sane mind. There were some, like John Hinckley Jr., whatever. There's some that were obviously psychotic and had a mental issue, but you're talking, that's not even 1,000,000%. We're talking 1-2 people. But it wasn't a diagnosed condition like apparently it is now.
Well, I Doug Mullins in the Facebook chat room just made a very great point. Anytime you tether your happiness on who the president is, you're destined for sadness. Um, every leader is going to let you down, um, in some capacity, whether it's your parents, whether it's a military leader, whether it's a community leader,
A
like
coach.
a coach.
Right.
Every leader that you have is going to let you down at some point in time because they're never going to withstand, the expectation that you put on them because they're human, right? The only leader that's not going to let you down, you're going to find in history and in doctrine and in the scripture.
Right.
The if you tether your happiness to that, you're absolutely destined for sadness because they're human. People are going to make mistakes. You're not always going to see eye to eye. Yeah, I'm engaged in several different enterprises with some wonderful business partners. And, these are guys that I've served in the military with. They're guys that I've served in the community with. They're guys that I absolutely admire and look up to because they're some of the smartest human beings I've ever met. Uh, I can let them down and they can let me down. And we're human.
Well, you're fallible. We know we make
Yeah.
mistakes, and you ask for forgiveness, and we learn from it, hopefully.
And
you don't do it
again, like this whole, and I have a guy, if he's watching tonight or if he's listening, he's on my hockey team. He'll know exactly who he is. That dude, he is suffering from sadness caused by the Trump presidency. And, like every time he bitches and moans about something that the president did or does or hasn't done or whatever, I ask him, I'm like, and how did that directly affect you today? Well, it's got me feeling like, not does it have you feeling, how has it affected you? You don't like his tax thing. Oh, so did you not receive the benefit from your employer for that? Oh, you don't like this. Did you not receive, whatever it might be?
Right.
Oh, you're going to put your house for sale in a booming economic situation. Cool, man.
Well, it's like my pastor.
How does this personally directly affected you?
Yeah.
And, it always comes down to, well, I feel that just like I saw LeBron James make a statement on CNN that he feels that the president, because he's the president, has emboldened people to be racist in America. It's like nothing could be further from the truth. There's nobody, with the exception of some white supremacists that have no connection to the White House other than by the same use of the word white, that are brazen or emboldened to be racist. Like everything else, that's just factually inaccurate. A guy didn't get elected president, and there's no secret white, phone line that only reaches white people that says, okay, this dude's in power, so it's cool to be racist again. Like, that's not how it happens. That's not how it works. That's factually untrue. You're putting something on somebody that's like, claiming Obama is single-handedly responsible for, the downward turn in racism, the opposite direction. Like, now he was definitely racist. He demonstrated that he was racist, but I guess you can't say that he was racist because that's racist to say that. But that's not how it works. And, when you put your happipiness on that, you're okay, one, it's a lack of maturity, and two, you're full of shit.
Yeah, say it like it is. I mean, it's like my pastor said back in the campaign season. You shouldn't get so wrapped around the axle about who's going to be the leader because they're only going to be there for a few years. There's only one leader that matters. It's one for forever. The one who's going to be here for 4 years is going to make mistakes, and they're going to be gone, and you're going to forget about them. And it was not much different than a conversation I had not too long ago with somebody when I told them the same thing. You're not going to remember in 8-10 years what somebody said today. It just doesn't affect you. But, again, people get all worked up. They have anxiety disorders. They have all these issues. They're not focused on what's real in life. What the reality is they've become so superficial again They don't care. They need. Sadly, you know this. Shard knows this, and many others do. It's going to take a horrific thing happening to our country or our society again, that of what demonstrates real evil or horror, for someone to really care about what's important in this world, because they're not going to do it when they care more about what the Kardashians said, or what who was on the latest got kicked off The Bachelor, or what the president has said that's got them all worked up. They don't know really what's important, because if they did, they wouldn't let it bother them. Like you said, does that really affect me? Nah. Has he done stuff that affects me? Yeah, he has. I got a bigger paycheck now. My taxes are better. I'm looking forward to filing taxes next year, which is supposed to be a lot easier. I know my company's doing a lot better. I know gas prices have been great. I know there's a lot more people back to work. There's things he has done that is downward trickled down to me that affected me, and so far it's all been pretty positive. That much I do know. I can't say that much for my governor, but that's a whole nother ball of wax. I'm in the wrong state. So, it is. It's interesting. A lot of things going on. There is between him. He's at his rallies. He's all that stuff, and I don't know when it's ever going to end. But what kind of scares me, Toby, is when all this does happen, or all this gets wrapped up, or this whole they find out there's nothing there and all that stuff. Excuse me. The left is not. They're just not going to. His haters aren't going to just like, oh well, we tried, we're done. We'll just ride this out. It's like, where are they going to go next? What lives are they going to try to ruin next? How much are they going to keep dividing this country? Because that's what it comes down to. Those who control the media, control the narrative, control most of the people. And what are they going to do next to try to divide and conquer this country versus unite this country?
Well, we're doing it to ourselves, and even in the veteran community, one of the things I want to talk about. I know we're getting short on time because we got to go watch Tim Kennedy, but the Million Veteran March that's scheduled to go on in Washington D.C. Before Veterans Day to protest the president and his parade.
Oh, I haven't heard about this.
So there's like this big thing about the Million Veterans March, and it's a very anti-right. It's a very left.
Who's putting this on? IAVA? Like, who's doing this?
So funny you should mention. So Vote Vets and IAVA have both said that they are not affiliated with it. However, they both tweeted out in support of it, but they are not part of it. And one of the reasons they're not part of it is because the people putting it on have been proven to be less than reputable, which seems to be the case in anything that happens on that end, especially in the veteran community. Like we learned with Standing Rock, the Veterans for Standing Rock, the guys that put that on, one of which, Wesley Clark Jr., ended up being, not a fraud, but he defrauded people. They took their money, took hundreds of thousands of dollars, and lied to the people and left them high and dry. They're not in it for the political cause.
So I guess him and Kokesh aren't putting this on. They're not doing it, or
no, but it's like people, and that's the problem. Is like Kokesh, perfect example that this guy claims that he's because he's running for president that he's the conspiracy against him. These guys are all full of shit. Yeah. Like they're out for themselves. They don't represent the veteran community. Like Vote Vets claim that they have 500,000 members, but when you dig into it, you find out that they only have maybe 1,000 to 5,000 members that are actually veterans, and everyone else on their rolls are like family members, or I knew somebody that served this one time, or that they think that the word Vote Vets means that they're veterans engaged in political activity. Which they are. They just don't know which side of the political activity they're in.
Yeah.
Kind of like IAVA.
Yoakum, too. Who's that guy, Yoakum, the one marching across the...
Oh, that dude. Troy Yoakum.
Troy Yoakum, yeah.
That dude is full of shit, too. That dude is a fraud, though.
Yeah.
Fraudulent in his service record and fraudulent in his what he claimed that he did. He did not walk across America. He cheated. He did not do it, and he pocketed that money. Continues to pocket that money with his charity, Active Heroes. So if you're giving money to Active Heroes, know that you're giving money to a fraud, and that guy's like full of shit, and they don't do anything that they do, and I can demonstrate that however you would like. I can provide it in video. I can provide it in text, however you want. And I'm saying that he's a douchebag doesn't bother me in any way because I'm not afraid of that dude in any capacity.
As long as you say with all due respect.
Yeah, no, I have zero, with all due disrespect, with all proper disrespect intended. But speaking of respect, I know we got to wrap up. One of the reasons why I think we weren't as prepared as we should have been tonight is because we're both reeling from the loss of a good friend. Yeah. So first and foremost, to John, we are going to do a tribute show. We already got some guests lined up to be part of that show. We're trying to put it together. And we spent more effort this week in and out of the woods trying to get that going than we did tonight. So we apologize. But John Lalia, Sergeant First Class, one of the founding partners in This Ain't Hell,
yep.
With one of the most impressive military records that you can imagine. A real watchdog and spotlighter of people like John Lalia was someone that, helped expose Troy Yoakum for being a fraud. Well, that's exposed so many men.
He was really the force behind stolen the visibility and awareness of stolen valor.
Absolutely.
Almost, even though Mark did a lot with him, he really ran with that torch and was the main one behind it. You're like me. How many times I reached out to him and Mark and be like, "Hey guys, I got somebody here I want to look into, whatever," and it's usually John responding. And
John has done a lot for the veteran community that a lot of people don't know, and I don't want to talk a lot about it because I really want people to know about him in our show. We did a tribute a couple months back to Concrete Bob Miller, and it's again, one of the things that got me, Troy, was the fact that you and I, we've known some pretty impressive men and women. And within our friends, we've been blessed. And when I can tell my children about the impact that these men have made, and it's not just like, man, he helped coach a couple of kids one time, which is also a great impact and one that should not be overlooked. But this is about really making an impact on a grand scale, on a macro level that's just crazy.
Yeah. And we're definitely gonna be doing a show to John, and it's for those that know him, he just passed away last week. The Lord took him home, and we're all on borrowed time. We all we all face the same end result and fate. It depends on how you've lived your life and where you put it, where you go after that. It's something we want to put together. Like Toby said, we already got some folks lined up that want to be part of that, and the stories that can come out. Hopefully we'll get Mark on too about it, and so many others that we'll want to talk about, because he was a true quiet professional and a unsung hero behind the scenes. That did what it was about, exposing people, helping people out. He did a lot, and Toby, you and I are both blessed, and I know share the same level of gratitude to know that we have been able to spend time with him and so many others, but especially John, joking, having a drink, talking, sharing stories, and just being blessed to be in his presence, like we have others like Bob Miller and so many others that again do things behind the scenes that most people never know about, but contribute more quietly than most people make noise about combined. For sure. So
undoubtedly, brother. I'm excited about it, but let's wrap up because we need to go watch Tim Kennedy, Hard to Kill. While we're getting melancholy on people that have passed, let's look at someone that has not yet and has a show dedicated to not being able to.
Yes, that's right. And
So,
so let me get I got everything spun up here. So yeah, let's call it a night. We've been going about an hour and 40. What? No, it can't be an hour and 44 minutes. Can it? No, not yet. An hour and 17 minutes maybe. Yeah. But I was looking at the clock counting down, not the one counting up. But yeah, Toby, great being back with you again this week. Looking forward to next week. We do have some great, we talked about Bataan Death March earlier. I was lucky enough on one of our earlier shows many years ago to interview a survivor of the Bataan Death March, and that was truly a memorable show because we knew that time we were on very limited borrowed time. We have another guest we're working on from that same era. Very excited about it. Hope to get that locked in this week. Another guest from that same time that is truly one of the last of a piece of history that we hope to have on the air here soon. So stay with us. Make sure you join us next Tuesday night and every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. here on Stu and the Nun. You can find us on all of our media outlets on stewandthenun.com. If you've been a fan for a while, you know where they're all out. You know where they're all at. Most of you are on Facebook, but be sure you catch us on any of the others, including your iTunes feed. And Toby, thank you for joining me tonight, and thank you everyone for letting us in your homes.
Thank you, E9 and Listen 9 Fight Company.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Stu and the Nun Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us because we have enjoyed sharing our time with you. Be sure to check out stewandthenun.com in addition to asking us questions and interacting with us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, BlueHammer.com, Veteran Outdoors, Graybeard Publishing, and Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a good night.